So yeah, I'm excited to talk about the Carson Wentz trade and the Deshaun Watson potential move. Before we get to that, please hit subscribe or the like button, or comment below, or share this video with someone who may like football who doesn't really know about the show at all. So yeah, let's get right into it. This trade happened 2 days after we were on the air the last time, and I wanted to discuss this trade because it's huge implications for both teams. So the trade is the Colts got Carson Wentz from the Eagles, and the Colts surrendered a third-round pick this year and a second-round pick next year that could become a first-round pick if Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps, or he plays 70% of the snaps and they make the playoffs. So it's kind of capped there. What are your thoughts on this trade? Let's discuss like one team at a time. How do you think the Eagles made out with this move?
I mean, I don't think they made out very well. I think they got as much as they could on the market. I mean, given that a few weeks ago we were talking about like, oh, they would have to unload picks to offload that Carson Wentz contract. The fact that they got at least some possibility of a first-round pick, I'll give them credit for it. But, I mean, this just feels like selling way low on Carson Wentz. Like, they're taking a massive dead cap hit, the biggest one in NFL history. I think it's over $30 million. They got a third-round pick this year. And, you know, even if they get the first-round pick next year, it's going to be late in the first in all likelihood, because I think if Carson Wentz plays most of the snaps, the Colts are probably going to go to the playoffs. So I don't think they made out particularly well. I'll give them credit for getting some assets for him, but this was just a classic scenario. They sold so low. They kind of backed themselves into a corner. They gave him a contract that he played so badly. They just had to get rid of him, and they drafted Jalen Hurts. So it was like, you know, they had they couldn't really reason with like, all right, we can give him one more chance to prove himself because Hurts proved to be better than him last year. So I think from an organizational standpoint, they just botched this whole situation. But, you know, the return they got for him, considering that he led the league in interceptions last year and really looked terrible, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think the larger issue is how this whole like 2-year process panned out.
Yeah, so I talked about the stock market earlier, and like, you know, the old adage is buy low, sell high. The Eagles sold at the absolute lowest. Like I was talking to my friend Dave, and he said, you know, like the Eagles, they got, instead of getting like 50 cents on the dollar, they got like a penny on the dollar. And I'm like, this penny was like encased in a wad of gum that you found on the street and you don't even want it at all. Like that's how it felt about like the trade. And like, I know that Carson Wentz was just awful last year. He had the same stats as Drew Lock, and that's all you need to know about how his year went. But that was his only bad year of his career, if you think about it, not counting the 2018 season where he missed most of those games. So in his rookie year, he did fine. Like he led the Eagles to 6 wins, which is way more than anyone thought. 2017, he was on track to win MVP before he suffered the knee injury. 2018, as I discussed, he wasn't really 100% because that knee injury happened late in the year. And then 2019, he led his team to the playoffs, even though he was missing most of his players. You know, the offensive line was in shambles. His top receiver that year, late in the year, was Greg Ward. And then, you know, maybe he beats Seattle if he doesn't get the concussion that he suffered when Jadeveon Clowney hit him. So 2020 was like I said, he was utterly like terrible, but that was his only bad year. And I think that, you know, if I were the Eagles, I would have just kind of waited and just like seen if he could improve from that, because you never know. Like there might have been some things behind the scenes where like who knows, maybe he has something tragic happen in his life. Like maybe something that was really distracting him. I know he became a father for the first time, so maybe he was just so tired from that. So like anything really could have happened. And I really think that he would have rebounded, because for 4 out of 5 years, he played really well, and he just had this horrible stinker. And I think he could be excused for that. So I think the Eagles, they just sold at the absolute lowest. And I think they should, you know, grade wise on the site, I think they should be punished for that. So I gave him, I initially gave him an F. I bumped it up to a D- once I kind of read the trade in detail, but I still think it was terrible.
Yeah, I'm like slightly higher on it than you. But it's still in the D range. Like I might give them a D plus, just because they got more than I thought they could for Carson Wentz after last year. And everything you say rings true. Like they were, Carson Wentz was phenomenal just a few years back. Like I thought he was a shoe-in for MVP, and then he suffered that injury. He got the Eagles to the playoffs, and last year, like everything around him fell apart. That offensive line was missing at one point. I think their 7 best offensive linemen, which is just mind blowing here. Like they were missing everyone who would have been active on game day for the first week of the season if they had a full complement of healthy players. So that really impacted him. His receiving core was terrible because the Eagles, they had some like veterans in there that hadn't been playing well. Sean Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey looked washed up when they got on the field. And then, Jalen Reagor didn't prove to be anything special as a rookie. So that's kind of on the front office end there. I think in Indy, he's going to have a chance to bounce back because while their weapons are still kind of a work in progress at the receiver position, Michael Pittman flashed last year, and that offensive line is really strong. All they need to do is add a left tackle to replace Anthony Costanzo, who retired. And they're going to have a chance to do that because the 2021 NFL draft class is terrific at the tackle spot. So at the 21st pick, the Colts could be in position to land that potential replacement for Costanzo. So I think that if you factor that in too, I think that it makes it look worse for the Eagles because, if he goes to a good situation with the Colts and thrives, I think the Eagles are going to look pretty bad, and it's going to become really apparent. Like, oh my God, they sold really low. And like, I wouldn't say it was maybe a penny and a stick of gum on the dollar. I might give them like 4 cents on the dollar. So, still pretty bad.
4 cents in that gum, maybe we could compromise. I think that we could do that. So I was looking at my phone because we had this question: how did Kenny feel about the Wentz trade? I wanted to discuss the trade with Kenny, but he had some work conflicts, so he couldn't do it. And I wanted to read this. He said, I will say this, the trade was expected. No one is surprised, but it's still sad. So Kenny is upset right now. I don't think anyone in Philadelphia likes this trade very much. In fact, Kenny asked how my dad felt about the trade because my dad's a big Eagles fan, and my dad was pretty upset about it too. And he was like, when I told him what the Eagles got, he's like, "That's it," because everyone was saying that the Eagles are going to get 2 first-round picks. That's what the Eagles wanted, and I always thought that was crazy. We even said that like if the Eagles traded Carson Wentz, they would have to give up some picks because that's essentially what the Rams did with Jared Goff. Obviously, like Wentz has had more success than Goff, even though they both kind of led their teams to a Super Bowl. Like at least Wentz had a great year, and Goff was kind of carried by his team. So like I said, it was penny on the dollar or 4 pennies on the dollar. Either way, the Eagles just definitely lost this trade.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of things, the Colts. This is just the buy low move for the Colts. Like they needed a quarterback. They weren't really in range to draft any of the top 5 passers in this year's class, so they would have had to trade up. But they still have some holes to fill. And then you looked at the free agent market. There was nothing too inspiring out there. So they kind of had to make a move on the trade market if they wanted to stay relevant. And I think there are massive things about this trade. I already talked about the offensive line with them, but reuniting Wentz with Frank Reich, I think is going to help him a lot. He was most confident and comfortable under Frank Reich. So I think Reich will be able to coax the best out of him. I think what you're going to see when he gets to Indianapolis, I wouldn't be surprised if they're just like, hey, like, let's look at that tape from last year, address what you have to fix, but then throw it out, forget about it. Like, you're a better quarterback than it showed last year. We're going to surround you with talent enough to make you comfortable and, allow you to perform better than you did. And the thing about them acquiring Wentz's contract, too, it's better for them than it is for the Eagles because they'll have ways to get out of it in the coming years at a cheaper rate. Whereas, the Eagles would have had to, if they waited beyond this year, I think they could have cut him with somewhere around $21 million in dead cap space next year or something along those lines. But the Colts, if he fails this upcoming year, they'll be able to move on from him easier than the Eagles because they have a lot of cap space still. So they still have resources to build around him. So I think where they're surrendering so little, they keep their first round pick this year to get that potential future left tackle in a strong class. I think this is an easy A grade for them because they did not give up much, but they got someone packed with so much potential who at one point there was legitimate discussion about, is he going to be a top 5 NFL quarterback? So I love this move for the Colts. And even if it doesn't pan out, they didn't give away much at all. Like comparatively to what other teams have traded for potential franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah, they're getting a potential franchise quarterback for a third-round pick and a pick in the 20s or a second-round pick. Like that's insane value. And you know what's crazy is that you just mentioned how the Colts still have a ton of cap space. Even with the Wentz trade, they have the fourth most cap space in the NFL. Like that's crazy. Like they can make so many good moves and build around Wentz, and Wentz would have so much of a better supporting cast in Indianapolis than he did in Philadelphia, at least in his last couple of years. So yeah, like you were saying, they just need to find a left tackle to protect them, but otherwise their offensive line's great. And I think they need maybe a number one receiver. T.Y. Hilton's going to be a free agent. They have a good running game though, and I like their defense. And as you said, Frank Reich got the most out of Carson Wentz. When Wentz had his best years on the Reich in Philadelphia. So you'd have to believe that Wentz is going to rebound, or at least maybe he doesn't play as well as he did in 2017 ever again. Like, who knows? Like maybe that concussion he suffered, maybe that just has lingering effects that he'll never recover from. But I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a lot better than he was last year, because like I said, he had the same stats as Drew Lock. So I feel like he has to get better with this better supporting cast. I think the Colts made a slam dunk trade. I think this is definitely an A or an A+. It was a great move by them.
Yeah, and even if Wentz just gets back to like average form, if the Colts surround him with enough talent, and they have a lot in tow already, they can be contenders in the AFC. Like they just, this is a tall task, but if they can just have Carson Wentz cut down on his interceptions, they'll have a chance. So he doesn't need to regain elite form for this trade to pan out for the Colts. It would be nice, obviously, but they're paying basically for average to above average production in what they surrendered for him. And, his salary is a little higher than you might pay for an average quarterback, but, he has a higher ceiling than average. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and they can eat that salary because of all that cap space. So it's not even really a big issue right now. In the AFC, there's a lot of room and there's a lot of movement potential for them to go up, because you have the Chiefs obviously, and the Bills and the Ravens are going to be there, but otherwise the AFC is like pretty weak. Like the Titans are going to be like somewhat competitive. I don't know how good they're going to be without Arthur Smith. I think we'll have to see. The Jaguars in a couple years of Trevor Lawrence will be good, and then you have the Dolphins. Who knows the two? They're always going to be competitive, but like the AFC is weaker than the NFC. So the Colts definitely have some potential to reach the AFC Championship. And then who knows, maybe Patrick Mahomes gets hurt again, or maybe the offensive line for the Chiefs is missing 3 starters again. And then you can kind of steal a Super Bowl appearance here and there with Wentz if he plays better. So like I said, the Colts is a great trade for them. I'm going to go back to the Eagles for a second, make 2 points. I think that, potentially getting a first round pick in 2022 is going to be better than 2021. And I know it's in the future, but this year is going to be so weird with no combine. You have a lot of prospects with no game film at all because they opted out. It's just going to be a weird year. It's going to be so difficult to scout these players. In 2022, when things are going to be more normal, I think you're going to have a better chance of hitting a successful first round pick. So I think the Eagles, though I like that. At least like that they're going to get a first round pick maybe in 2022 rather than 2021. And the second thing is, so we had some questions here, just kind of like, I feel like we should address with Jalen Hurts. Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Inquirer, who's like a longtime Philadelphia beat writer, he said he thinks the Eagles will target a quarterback at 6, even though Jalen Hurts is on the roster. Like, what do you think about that?
I think that's really weird. Why would you take Jalen Hurts in the second round if a year later you're just going to give up on him? Like, I know it's a strong quarterback class, and if they fall in love with the prospect, sure, go for it. I'd be for it. But at the same time, that Jalen Hurts pick just still is like, it just looks so weird at the time. It's one of the reasons that Carson Wentz is gone now. If I was Philly, I would just take the best player available. Now, if that's a quarterback, sure, go for it. But, if you end up in a scenario, and I think this is certainly a possibility, where Trey Lance and Mac Jones are the 2 best quarterbacks on the board, are you really going to be able to confidently say, like, Trey Lance is ready to go after he played 1 game last season because North Dakota State canceled their season? I don't know. Or rather, they're playing in the spring, I think, or they're trying to play in the spring. They didn't cancel their season outright. They postponed it. But I just think why would you just go back to the well and draft one immediately when you gave Jalen Hurts only 4 games to prove himself? And he didn't look that bad. Like, I don't think he looked great, but he had that nice game against the Saints his first time out. He made some plays against the Packers when he relieved Wentz in that game. So I would be more willing to give him a chance and just add a big time number 1 pass catcher, whether that's Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, whoever's on the board there. Just add them and see what Hurts can do with them. And then, to your point, look in 2022, if Hurts doesn't work out, you're going to be drafting high and you'll have a chance at the quarterback then.
Yeah, so my theory is that, we saw that with Nate Sudfeld in week 17, the Eagles just said they wanted to take a look at Nate Sudfeld. Maybe they just wanted to take a look at Jalen Hurts and use their second-round pick on Jalen Hurts to take a look at him. And maybe they're going to take a look at a quarterback at number 6 overall. So maybe that's what the Eagles are going for. It's still mind-boggling to me. Like Kenny and I had a video posted during the draft of how bad that pick was, and it was still atrocious. But Hurts played better than I thought he would. Like like you said, he had some bright moments. So I think that I would give him 1 year to prove himself, and then like you said, if he sucks, then in 2022 there are several quarterbacks who can go in the first round, and potentially you might have 2 first-round picks. So you can take a quarterback with your pick, and then with Indianapolis' pick, you can draft an offensive lineman or a receiver and kind of build around that new quarterback. So it doesn't make any sense to me unless Justin Fields or Zach Wilson falls to 6, which I don't see happening. Like, are you really going to spend the 6th overall pick on Trey Lance or Mac Jones? Like, that just seems terrible. I think that would be even worse than the Jalen Hurts pick, if that's even possible. So I don't like it at all. Tony says Kyle Pitts is the guy for Philly. If he's even there, Charlie Campbell has Kyle Pitts going number 2 to the Jets. So Kyle Pitts may not be there. I have the Eagles taking him in my mock draft, but there's a chance that Miami could take, maybe not Miami, but Cincinnati at 5 could take him as well. So I'd say it's like maybe 50-50 for Kyle Pitts to get there, but he would definitely be better than a quarterback pick at number 6.
Yeah, I'm a big Kyle Pitts guy. I think he's from the Philadelphia area too, so that would be a plus.
Yeah, for sure.